Japan, one of the countries hit hard by the first wave of COVID back at the beginning of last year, has been one of the recent success stories in the fight against the virus. Seemingly overnight, their infection rates have plummeted, bringing about a small upswing in their economy, and life is looking much brighter. Today, we're looking at Japan's decision to provide its youth with a cash injection, so stay with us. First of all, what is the situation on the ground right now? Overall, so far during the pandemic, 1.7 million people have been infected on the East Asian island nation, with only just over 18,000 deaths, with its mortality rate of 1.06%, much better than other big nations and economies. China, for example. Japan has seen a sharp downward trend in infections and deaths recently, and since the end of September, the curve has almost flattened completely. Bars are now full, trains are back to their sardine tin-like capacities, and cases are coming in at around 100 cases per day throughout the whole capital. Yeah, which is an incredible achievement in a country of around 125 million people. The mood in the country is one of cautious celebration, but what has been behind the drop-off? Well, there's one thing it cannot be attributed to: a lockdown. Japan has never had anything like a UK or Australian-style clampdown on civil rights, but they have had an incredible successful vaccination rollout. In a nation that views conspiracy theorists with the disdain that they might rightfully be viewed, most young people are coming forward to claim their shots. Japanese people, and Koreans for that matter, another country which has done relatively well to combat the spread, are known for wearing masks in public even before the pandemic due to the air pollution concerns. Thanks, China. Around 70% of the population are vaccinated, but as the country heads into what can be a quite brutal winter, it'll be interesting to see what the situation is come spring. So what about the new South African variant in Japan? Stay with us to find out. As has been reported in the news this week, we know that a new, potentially more infectious variant has been spreading around the world after first being detected in South Africa. This morning, the Japanese government wasted no time in strengthening its border defenses by announcing that all Japanese and foreign nationals entering the country from South Africa and 5 other surrounding countries, Namibia, Botswana, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and Eswatini, will be required to quarantine at a government facility for 10 days. It's measures like these that the decisiveness of the government, which mean the country continues to have low cases and deaths. Compare that with the UK's reaction when it only closed its borders and required people to quarantine this spring, a full year after the virus had been around. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary, Hirokazu Matsuno, revealed today that the country has taken the highest level of precaution. If this approach means that the rest of the country is safe, then it's obviously the correct decision. Along with Japan, the UK, Israel, and Singapore, they have also brought measures to curb the new variant, enforcing similar quarantine measures for people traveling from the region. The variant has already appeared in Asia, with a couple of travelers in Hong Kong found to have it. There's a theory that the virus has evolved after infecting a person with an already compromised immune system, an untreated HIV/AIDS patient, for example. What do we know about Japan's new economy boosting vouchers they're giving to minors then? The Liberal Democratic Party, headed by new incumbent Fumio Kishida, have announced this week that they will offer 100,000 yen in voucher and cash payouts to children aged 18 or younger. In a similar stimulus package move that saw U.S. citizens receive a boost last year, low-income households are believed to be eligible for the grant as many people have been hit hard by the pandemic. Kishida said last week that he wants the checks to start being handed out as soon as possible, with the new budget being drawn up by the end of this month. Bravo. We can only wonder if Japan's previous Prime Minister, the financially shrewd Shinzo Abe, would have given the go-ahead for the stimulus system. What do you guys think? The benefit will come with no strings attached and will impact around 20 million children, but critics have questioned if this is the right time for the country to be handing out free cash, as it is saddled with debt, more on that later, more than twice its GDP. Japan's rulers hope to promote use of the unpopular My Number ID card system, offering users another 30,000 yen if they agree to use it. Japan did a similar thing last year when they gave out the same amount, that's 100,000 yen in cash, but had to rethink their policy this year as most of that handout stayed in people's savings accounts. It's not often the public get one over on the powers that be. So why is Japan in so much debt? Let's have a look, so stay with us. Japan's public debt rose this year to just over 13 trillion, which works out to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 265% of their GDP. In other words, a staggering amount of debt. But how have the usually sensible Japanese government and the once robust economy let it get this bad? We really need to go back to the early 90s to address that one, with the asset price bubble collapse of 1991 leading to what was known as the lost decade in Japan. GDP fell and the economy stagnated. A period of growth followed in the early 2000s as the Bank of Japan injected liquidity into the market with an unusual policy of quantitative easing. It didn't particularly do much good, and by 2013, Japanese public debt amounted to more than 1 quadrillion yen, 2%, or twice the country's GDP. It hasn't really gotten any better either. The global financial crisis of 2008 put paid to any ideas of the economy making any sort of a comeback. Add into the equation the Fukuoka earthquake and the subsequent tsunami in 2011, which ruptured nuclear power stations and sent the country's fish market into a spin, as well as the pandemic, and we have ourselves the perfect storm of debt and an economy which appears to be on the ropes. This has all been used as ammunition to question the current government's decision to spend billions or even trillions more yen on stimulus checks. What do you think about this? Let us know below. It's not all doom and gloom for the Japanese economy though, is it? Well, no, not quite. It was reported that the slump in Japan's economy received a well-needed lift in the run up to the Tokyo Olympics this year, growing 100% more than it was expected to in the second quarter this year. Good job, team. The island nation enjoyed a 1.3 growth in GDP in the same period after an almost 4% slump in the first quarter. Yikes. The reason for the unexpected growth came as the public and also business felt comfortable spending again as the impacts of the COVID vaccine were starting to become more noticeable. Added to this were robust exports, which helped the mini recovery. Japan's economic recovery remains slow in relation to other countries, however, and will not be helped the longer the pandemic drags on, but the unexpected growth will come as a nice surprise for the government, who have experienced one setback after another in the early part of the 21st century. What does the future hold for Japan post-COVID? Stay tuned to find out. Traditionally, Japanese business culture has been resistant to change, and the idea that seniority rules is alive and well. Add this, the gender pay gap being one of the worst in the developed world. Can they sustain themselves post-COVID? They might be forced to. The culture of sharing prospered in Japan due to its geographical location, and the modern winner-takes-all attitude of other nations has been frowned upon in the land of the rising sun. This might be one reason why their economy has taken a hit recently. Change in Japan is notoriously slow, and it is this idea that worries people most as we head towards a world and economy dominated by the long-term effects of COVID. Japan was ranked 121 out of 153 countries in the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Report last year. This is as horrendous as it sounds, putting it on par with countries like Sudan and Ethiopia. Progress is also hindered by labor policies, putting pressure on business to keep traditional structures in place. The country must change its attitude when it comes to work life. They risk being left behind if the culture of unprofitable business and lack of growth potential are allowed to continue to flourish. Restraining people will be key to their future growth, as the fourth industrial revolution has seen rapid acceleration of automation. If Japanese society doesn't have the strength to tell its older workforce what is needed, the future might not be so rosy for them. As always, thanks for tuning in today, and remember to join us next time where we'll be sharing more fun revelations. Also, why not share this video with any friends you think might be interested? Take care, guys.